Hello. Hello, 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 hello. Greetings from the other side. Hopefully people are having a good time. Here we are again on a Monday night, ready to attack some good things. I'm sitting here with you lot with a coffee in my hand, so happy Starbucks day, I guess. Can't ever have too much coffee, so... Okay. Hang on, I'm going to turn the aircon on. Is there an echo? Really? Oh. Hold on a second then. That's not good if there's an echo. Hold on 2 secs. Let me turn this off. Okay. Is the echo gone already? Hang on, I'm just going to put the echo on. Hang on. All right. Let me just check with my headphones. Because it could be a... Okay, I'm not hearing an echo here. Oh, it was you. Okay, good. You scared me there. Anyway, it's all good. Scary mode over. How is everyone? Are you okay? How's Monday treating you so far? Hopefully it's doing all right. And you're having a good, successful day. Nice one, Peter. Anyway, it's good to see you all again. Oh, look, before we go any further, I have... remember what we spoke about last week? And we were talking about Discord. So, I have got all that now. And what I can do... Hold on. Never. Create a new link. Copy. I can now send you I can now send you the link. Wait 2 seconds and I will do that now. It's bizarre. On my own stream I have to sign into YouTube on my browser. I have to view my own stream is what I mean. Before I can even send something to you. Which is kind of nuts. Where are we? Live. Here we are, here. Right. Okay, I'm going to paste this link in the chat, okay? There you go. With a bit of luck, that will and should take you there. To the Discord. That is our little humble channel, so to speak. Yeah, there we go. It works. So, you know, I mean, it's been run dormant now for last kind of a year or so, so we haven't done anything with it. But you know, we will sort it out. You know, we'll get things busy again. You know, so welcome everybody. So welcome along. And today, we're going to do some advanced stuff in Horizen, which I haven't actually done yet. You know, which is surprising. So we're going to do some fun things, and I'm going to blow your minds today. So at least that's the point anyway, or the plan. There you go. So I had a few... What gave me the idea for this is during the week, we had... I was helping a customer actually. And then, you know, like always, you know, the customer then comes out to me and says, oh, look, you know, love Horizen, love what it does, but I didn't know how to do this, or I didn't know how to do that. And in your presets, it's got this sound, but I didn't know how to recreate it again, and things like that. And so, and then last week on the stream, we did something where I showed something that was slightly advanced, and people seemed to appreciate it. So I'm like, well, look, let me show you guys some of the tips and tricks. It's not just limited to Horizen, but a lot of this is Horizen exclusive because other synths can't do it. So I thought I would share my knowledge of how to kind of do things in a more advanced way, because Horizen has lots of little special kind of things to it, so to speak. You know, because the end of the day, if we can educate people on learning Horizen, then when eventually if we do a community pack, once we have a few more members, then we'll have more richer sounding kind of presets because people understand the synth a lot more. And I think that's kind of super important in terms of the grand scheme of things. So, and I feel it's my duty today to kind of walk you through a few cool steps. So feel free to follow along with this. And I'm not going to necessarily try and be super musical today. It's just I want to show you the techniques so that you can apply this in your own time with your own sounds and whatever. But there's lots to go through. So some really cool stuff. Right, so I've got a little list in front of me here, which I'll do a few things for. Right, let me just first go to this screen here so you can see it. Let's make sure you can hear the sound. With a bit of luck, you can. Read in chat, thanks guys for joining the Discord. As I say, we will, you know, make it bigger and better as time goes on. So, in fact, welcome aboard. There we go. So, you guys are solidly in. It's good to have you part of our little community. All right, now, let's just talk sound design for a small second. Okay, so, right. When you have the difference between, like, I'd say a beginner sound designer and an advanced sound designer is that while they can create the same sounds, one will kind of take it a little bit further than the other one. At the end of the day, is everyone is still equal in terms of sound design. It's just that knowledge is key, right? So if you don't understand the fundamentals of a synth, not necessarily that's a problem. It's not a problem at all. Because you can always sit here and just twiddle knobs and be like, oh, that sounds cool, that's great, whatever. And you don't need to know everything about a synth to still operate it fully, right? But there's always techniques that you can kind of do that are parked in your brain that you kind of say, oh, this would be a good idea to try, or that would be a good idea to try, you know? So there's lots of little nuggets of information that we can kind of go through. So, and also I'm not sure whether a lot of people are even aware of some of these functions. So, and that's why I want to go through them today. So first of all, let's start with an easy, obvious one. I want to talk about the modulation side of things because in Horizen, modulation is kind of pretty much everything. So this is why we've got all these modulators front and center everywhere we go between the synth, which is, you know, super cool. In fact, let me just reset the synth back to default. So we've got a default sound. So, okay. So modulation is done in many ways by all these LFO modulators. Now, currently we've got 6. So you can obviously use these 6 different things at different places. So where can you use them, I hear you ask? Well, that's a good thing. So let's talk about aftertouch. It is only monophonic aftertouch, however, not polyphonic aftertouch, which is a difference. So in case you don't know, just a slight tangent is that mono aftertouch is basically if you press and hold a key, it will modulate, but it will modulate everything on the keyboard across the whole range, is where polyphonic aftertouch will do independent notes, okay? We don't have that yet in Horizen, so not to say never, but at the moment we can only deal with just standard aftertouch. So how do you apply aftertouch to a sound? So we have our very boring saw wave right here. And let's say I want to add as a vibrato to it, right? To make it like a kind of a synth, you know, like a, you know, synthy sound, right? So what we'd do is straight off the rip, I've got this one already set to sine on the default with a speed to whatever you want. Now, the first thing you want to do is the depth CC here, which is your CC values. Now, if you know anything about MIDI, then each MIDI different things has its own controller, okay? So, I mean, I don't know what they are, you'll have to look those up. But if you have a external MIDI device, then you can control, you know, lots of things, so you're not limited to a certain number. But in this instance, we're going to crank it all the way to 129, which is mono aftertouch. Once it's set to the maximum 129, then we need to assign it to our pitch, because essentially our pitch is going to modulate our modulator. So we're going to drag LFO2 over to here. And then if we put it at a sensible number like 3%, because vibrato isn't kind of crazy, and it's already engaged. So now, looking at the depth knob right here, so you can see if I press hard now, if I press soft, nothing happens. And then if I press harder, as you can see, it now starts to modulate, right? So, and then we can speed that up, or better still, we can kind of enhance it. You know, it sounds so sexy as it is. So that's how you get aftertouch. And better still, more to the point, you can kind of do better things now, because let's say if you want it to be, say, slow, but you didn't want it completely on or off, then we can use this fade-in multiplier, which basically lets the amount or the depth fade in over a certain time. So, you know, it tells you the milliseconds up the top here. So 1.8 milliseconds. So it will start small and gradually go up. And there you go. It kind of just spills itself up a little bit, right? So that's one way you can get aftertouch on the sound. And then that is then, it's always the same no matter where you go on the synth. It's always going to be that. It will always be, the depth value will be 129. You can mess around with the fade and the speed. Now, there's some other options down the bottom here, which I'll talk about in a little while. But while we're talking about all this MIDI CC stuff, let me show you a few other ways how you can use all these modulators in different ways for sound design, right? So let's say, for example, the filter here. So let's use a different one, right? So if we grab LFO1 and we'll plonk it on our filter and we crank the depth, and I don't know, let's make it like this, just for the sake of it, right? And if we do the same thing, if we put it to 129, so it's then automatically done with aftertouch. So again, if I play normally, nothing, and then if I press and hold, so you can kind of, you know, do those type of things, right? And not only that, is you can kind of create your own weird and wonderful patterns. You can have it on one shot, so that it will only trigger once at the start, and that's it. And then so you can create a weird kind of off effect or something like that, right? Hopefully that makes sense. Or you can press retrigger, which basically retriggers that modulator every single key press, right? So, which is better for things like pitch automation and things like that, rather than LFOs. So you wouldn't really do it for like a filter, but anyway. And let me now show you what you can do with just the pitch without an LFO doing a sine wave. So this is where all the crazy things happen, and this is probably one of my most fun things with Horizen, because well, it's just amazing. And I'll show you later on a sneak peek of some of the expansion stuff that I'm doing at the moment, which is this you know, the mountain pipes and things like that, which I use modulation quite heavily. I'm leaning on it quite a lot. So, and most of it is to do with the pitch. So, for example, let's drag a new one, LFO3, to here. Because I want actually time effects, which means that I want to adjust the physical signal of the sound, of the source sound, then I need this at 100% now. And obviously if I just play it now, it's going to sound very strange. Right, as you expect, because this LFO modulator is simply going from nothing to all the way up. So now at the bottom here, there's a couple of just random presets that we added, but this one here in the middle resets it to 0, 50%, right? So which means that it's unity, okay? There is no difference in pitch whatsoever. So, but now you see, you can kind of say, okay, well, maybe I want to slide in from a note, right? And so you can kind of create this shape. You know, and if we just do one shot so it doesn't keep on repeating, you know, then we'll always have that. It will always do it. Of course, then you can say, okay, well, maybe I want it to go up and down or whatever, right? But then I want it faster. So you can just kind of do really some crazy stuff, or even kind of a little bit like an old vintage synth sort of thing. If I take off one shot, then, oops, slow it down. Then, you know, if you set it just right, then, and then put the smoothing on, I'm sorry. Slow it all the way down. Oops, daisy, I didn't mean to do that. And then you can create a kind of slight detune of everything. You know, it's very, very minor, but it like all adds up into things. Now, although we have this guy here, let me just speed this up again, just for a second, and put it back to one shot. All right, so, okay, that would do for now. Now, but what happens if I now want aftertouch, or at least a vibrato? Then we've got a second pitch wheel here. So if you just simply gauge that, you can then create sine, put your depth up there, and then likewise your speed. So, and then you can have, you know, your vibrato there. So you can kind of create many things all together just using the pitch, which is really exciting. But this, one thing I really want to say about this, which is kind of quite amazing, is that depending on how committed you are, if you, and let me just take off this one, if you go back to here. So at the moment, all we've got is just a small little squiggle that we just randomly created, right? So it just starts, drops down, whatever. But if you put it really slow, right? Like really, really slow, like 0.02, right? Then it's going to take a long while to get from point A to B all the way over here. So you can physically create a little story. Do you know what I mean? Like if you've got a really evolving cinematic sound that you want to work on or whatever, then you can kind of do that, you know? So, and that would just kind of run for a while, you know, because it would take ages to get to the end. But I won't bore you with that. But, you know, essentially that's what it's doing. You know, and so you can create this whole kind of modulation thing based off the story that you want to do, whether you want to pitch up, pitch down, or whatever. Now, again, it's all in percentages, right? So if I just remove all of these things here, so right now that's 50%. So if I click in the middle, it tells you if you click on the node what percentage you're in. Say right now it's 50, but Obviously, if I go down, then I'm going down by, you know, 30%, which is 3 cents essentially. So, you know, so you can kind of do that, but that works out to be a whole octave from A to B, basically. So, and obviously at the moment I've got one shot on, which means that if you hold the key, it won't re-trigger itself unless you press re-trigger, and then it's every key press. So, which sounds really daft. So, but on the right thing, it's gold, you know, so it kind of works brilliantly. Okay. So this is pretty much modulation, and bear in mind, what you can do is other stuff like this. Look, let me show you. So let's just put a reverb on real quick, right? Put that up, make sure it's on. Okay, let me just turn the pitch off. Right, there we go, right? We got load of reverb. Let's just drown it with reverb for a second, because I'm trying to illustrate something, all right? Right, lots and lots of reverb. Now, sometimes when you're creating something, especially leads, you want the atmospherics of the reverb, you know, going down, but you don't want it on attack note. So how do you do that? Well, in Horizen, you can do that again with these modulators. So let's create that now. So if we go to LFO3, for example, and we create something like this, okay, then what this is doing essentially is gating out or nulling the reverb send until it gets to this point in time. So if we now drag this over to here, right, put the depth up on here, now if I play, okay, that's a little bit too fast. There we go, see, no reverb, right? Now, obviously, you can time this to how you want. You can time it in by tempo syncing. You can have it in 8 notes or whatever it is you want to have it in. But for this tutorial, I'll just keep it whatever, right? So at the moment, I don't have reverb. But if I now hold the key, we still got a reverb, right? So it's a real kind of cool way to create a lead sound, especially a monophonic sound. And to do that, by the way, just you click note effects and click mono. So you can't obviously hold keys now, but that's a really good way to kind of gate the reverb or any effect, come to think of it. And while we're talking about effects, there's something else that I really want to say that I've never actually told anyone about. And whether you've seen it yourself or not is a different matter. But let's just go through that real quick. So on the send effects right here, underneath here, oh, actually, let me just take this modifier off. So we've got full reverb, right? Okay. Now let me turn up the reverb just so you can better hear this. Right. Now, as you can see, there's a lot of high frequency in there. I mean, yes, you can use the high cut, you know, if you really want to. But how about another way? So if you press EQ, right, then we open this window. Now we can EQ the send, right? So we can be very specific about where we boost or cut or whatever, right? So now we've got really high-end reverb. And this doesn't apply to reverb, this applies to every effect. You know, so if you want really dark delays, then you can have that there. If you want to have distortion only on a certain frequency, then use the EQ, you know, so, you know. So yeah, I mean, I often like to get rid of all the high end anyway. So you can kind of do it that way, right? So that's a quick little thing just to show you. And you can do that with each 4. You can't do it on the master effects, but only on the send. So it's really good for like things like reverbs and delays and distortions, because you can really just home in on those frequencies. You know what I mean? So, just good stuff. Let me drink a bit of coffee. Ah, man needs coffee. Okay. So hopefully everyone understood that. There's some more really big party pieces coming up soon. So let me have a look at my notes. Okay, so we've done MIDI CCs, we've done LFOs and the effects. Okay, let me explain this again while we're here, which is the unison detune modulation. All right. So what does that mean exactly? Well, when you modulate anything, you know, it obviously creates modulation, which is what it says on the tin. But when you are dealing with unison, which is obviously multiplying the voices, it's a common term in synthesis world, then what we can do with Horizen, we can modulate the amount of detune that there is going on at any given time. So, for example, right, this is with no... Oh, let me just turn down that reverb a little bit more. So, right, that'll do. So, if I now just apply detune, unison to this, right? Three voices would do, and a little bit of detune. Obviously, we get the kind of the Juno sound, right? And then obviously, if you crank it up even more, then that's nasty, right? However, it's only nasty if you want it to be. So, and what do I mean by that? Well, look, we can attach an LFO to here. So, if we make this kind of really cool, again, there's no limits to this. You can do whatever you want. So, we're going to use LFO4, put the depth upwards. And now, in my case, I want the detune to go up and down. So, it will go from the range of 0 to whatever I've got this dial set to as the maximum, okay? So, if I simply just create a triangle... I know this is a triangle because I'm good at school. So, and now I can adjust the speed of that. And as I play, it will modulate this point being down here. And then this point being all the way up. So, you know, so you, all of a sudden you don't get that ugly sensation. You get that really beautiful kind of modulating thing, right? So... So, you know, we're now stepping into the kind of the real kind of analog side of things, you know, which I think is, you know, pretty smart. So, you know, then of course on top of that, you put a little bit of, what do you call it? A little bit of this stuff on. Let's put it up higher. Then we have a little bit of classy kind of vibrato stuff going on as well. So anyway, so with that, you can really kind of push the boundaries of what the unison can kind of do. I mean, of course, from there, you can always adjust the speed. So, you know, to make it really fast, to modulate real quick. And you can't really notice that so much. But of course, you can slow it down or even increase the amount. So it will really go out of tune, right? And that's a really beautiful thing because it takes a static sound from nothing and brings it into something that's life, you know, full of life. I just love it. It's, you know. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. So this is probably one of the most modulated things I probably do in Horizen, this and pitch, because I just adore this so much. It's absolutely great. So there's a question. Hang on. Is there a way of scaling the FX send EQ to the note being played? If you play an A, the EQ goes to A. If you play D, the EQ goes to the frequency of D upon the lowest note played. Not really, because the EQ, obviously the EQ doesn't understand MIDI inputs. So that's not really an automated thing in synths, so to speak. You know, that's more of a DAW Pacific thing to understand that. Hopefully I'm understanding your question correctly, but I think I understand what you mean. So you're talking about on here, the EQ, if you playing an A, then this needs to be an A. If you play a D, so on and so forth, right? So yeah, the EQ is not MIDI triggered. So we wouldn't be able to do that, I'm afraid. Not as far as I know. I don't know. You know, I'm not the coder, so it's a question I could ask. So yeah. Okay. Back to modulation. Okay, let's right, that's the detuning done. Again, please don't overlook this. This is what makes Horizen pretty special. And so far, correct me if I'm wrong, but I've only ever seen this in our synth. I've never seen this anywhere else. So this is truly unique to us. So, you know, which is a cool thing. Right, I want to talk about the virtual analog stuff at the top here, considering we're talking about this sound. Something I've never really talked about either. But again, this is why this is advanced tips and tricks. So this is something that to bury in your memory bank for later on. Right. So let's get back to the mods. Okay. Let's use a sine sound. Now, on the virtual analog, if you've ever looked at it properly, there's two, right? There's essentially 2 oscillators per each voice that we have. So in total, you can have 8 oscillators. Now, let's choose, I don't know, a triangle on one side and a saw on another, right? And at the moment, if you look at this button here, the mix knob, it's only playing to the left side, which is the saw, right? So if I put it to the full right, then it's just going to play the triangle. Obviously, I can now blend those two together. So, and you have, you know, a saw and a triangle. Okay, nothing too special there, however. But this little knob underneath, the depth knob, kind of is cool. So this depth is the amount of modulation. So, and this is the modifier. So if I now drag LFO2 to here, let's take it off CC and just make it automatically, right? So now if I play, it's going to blend between the two, okay? As you can clearly hear it, right? So, and that will just go on forever, basically. And obviously here, now you can speed that up or, you know, smooth it out. Do whatever you want to do. So that's one way of, you know, creating a modulation between 2 different things. I mean, you can do something crazy. You can like put one -2 and the other one, you know, 2 on the scale, and then if you really want that sound, then that's up to you, isn't it? So, you know, but bit high pitch for me, but you know, if you do that right, and then of course there's no limits there. You can change whatever you want. You can have it as a custom shape if you really wanted to. So if you only wanted like a little bit of the scale, then I've now got more triangle than I do saw, you know, or obviously the reverse. Just a hint of triangle in there now, you know. So it's a way to kind of really get customized to the VA side of things, to kind of bring that more into depth. I mean, there's going to be lots more of this when I do another synthwave pack or cyber pack or whatever you want to call it going forwards later on. I'm going to be utilizing this quite a lot in lots of different things. And just while I'm here, the same thing happens to Wavetable as well, by the way. So on Wavetable, if I just play, right, at the moment, it's just playing a sound, right? That was actually based off LFO1. Let's kill that. Now, the fixed position, if I turn this, it means it's going to play through the actual table, right? So, you know, as that is, let's choose a random one. As you can hear, let's choose an interesting one. Okay, that would do for this example. Right, so now if I want to modulate this, again, we do it in the exact same way. So if I go to LFO2 here, put the depth up, and then I do this, right? What it should do is obviously start at 0. It'll play 1 from the bottom of the table, right to the top, then back down again. So, yeah, as it's doing there. Now, obviously from here, if you've got a sound, I don't know, let me see if I can find one. Oh, sorry, I've got fixed position on. My apologize. There we go. It's now doing it. Okay, this is a good one because it's got the wavetable's got loads of sounds in it, right? So, and while this is fun and interesting, it wouldn't necessarily make a good sound. But you never know, right? So maybe like I like 2 or 3 nice things in that wavetable. So again, you can limit it and say, right, I only want this range here. I just want those ones, you know, or maybe you know, then we get the same effect again, right? So that's going to cycle through all day long, you know. So it's a really imaginative way of kind of really getting to grips with it. I know that we don't have an interface where it shows you the wavetable, so at the moment it's just kind of guesswork. But you know, we can only take little steps forward. So hopefully that will make sense to you with all of the modifiers there. So, you know, hopefully with a bit of luck. Now, all right. One thing I really want to show you actually is something kind of cool. So let me wait. Whoa. Right. Okay, right. Let me just click on this. Now, this is just a pad sound, okay? This is really exciting, actually. I'm not gonna lie. So, it's just a generic pad sound, right? As example says. But let's say that we want to create something that, okay, this is more for cinematic stuff, but really good for transition stuff as well, and things like that, as long as you do the piece you want, cut it, fade it all in, and it will be job good. I use this a lot. So, okay, we've currently got just 2 sounds. Let me add a third here, and maybe just a 4th. So, just for this demonstration, right? So now we've got lots of sounds. So what I want to show you is with the input control up here. Now, do you see at the top where it's got pitch wheel amount? Okay, now all of these are independent, okay? So, which is really cool. So, so what we can now do is uncheck the lock pitch, which means that now I can change each one as I want to, right? Which is great, because now all of a sudden I can now have a lot of fun. So, for example, let's just do this. I don't know. So I've gone -3 on the first one, on the first sound, +3 on the second sound, -1 on the third sound, and then on the synth sound that we just created, +5, right? It sounds crazy. But now watch what happens if you press... Now you can just drone the note, right? Well, just listen to this. Let me turn down that synth, because that's just too loud. So, yeah, now that is just fire in my opinion. So that's so great. So you can get this really daunting stuff happening. If I play it higher up, you know, that's just instant movie, isn't it? Just instant. And I've used that a lot just in segues. So you'll do a real big passage, you know, and then that will just run through, and then, you know, that'd be the calm where everyone's safe, and all of a sudden the action picks back up again, and then you kind of rise it up, and then off you go again. The big storm drums come in, and you know, off you go, right? So it's so easy to set up as well, and it is simply just adjusting all of these as you want to, right? So yeah, that's an awesome little tip, and one that people don't know about, you know. Okay, the other thing I want to talk about is another favorite thing of mine. In fact, I use this all the time, especially if you're doing ambient stuff for any track, for whether it be film-esque or, you know, drum and bass, or, you know, hip hop, whatever it is. If you're doing anything ambient, then this is going to be your friend. So let's actually let's load one, so I don't need to sit here and recreate something, right? So Elm Street Horror, that would do. I'm just loading one, as long as I did it on this. Hang on. Yeah, okay, I did. Right, so let me just solo this sound here, right, which is just the ambient sound, right? So, yeah, okay. Now, I don't know how much you're going to be able to see this, but let's see if you understand it. So, what I've got here is the range modifier, okay? So, I've got any sound that I want loaded. But I don't necessarily want this because it's an ambient sound and it isn't, you can't play it like a pad, right? It would just sound strange. Because when I sampled this, I would have sampled, you know, many different things all at once, as well as some real life textures and Foley, and put them all together into a big soup, so to speak, sampled it, and then put it in as a Horizen single shot sound, right? And so it's called like a drone ambient sound. So if you've got that, then it's like, well, what's the point of having that sound and putting it all across the keyboard? Because you can't play it like a pad sound, so it's a waste. So it's all developed with this range guy here. So, for example, if I want that big drone sound to happen, and I don't want it all at the top because I've got something pretty going on up there, then I can then set my start point and my end point. So at the moment it's set to 73, which I think is C2, and then yeah, then it starts to fade. So so you can obviously always set whatever whatever part of the keyboard that you want to be on. So I mean, you can even put it all the way down here, so it only sort of just plays in the lower position, so to speak, right? So, you know, right now, look, I'm playing across the keyboard up here, and nothing, and then all of a sudden down here it starts playing. If you click on the fade, then it will fade from the last octave possible up until that point. So it just kind of helps it kind of gradually go on. And obviously you can do that for every single sound. So start, end point, whatever. And I think I've got this. Well, I've just changed it now. So let me just load a different one. Okay. So on here, so we've got this sound here, which looks like I'm running all the way through the keyboard. And this one I've got stopped. So what is this sound? If I solo it, okay, that's just the big thumpy sound. And then there's nothing on the top side of the keyboard because something else is happening there, right? So that one's going all the way through. I'm just using these three sounds. So yeah, so that's basically what's happening with that. So the range will be good because you don't necessarily want it everywhere. So now you can sort of say to yourself, okay, right, these are the ambient drone notes. I want those as my drone sounds right at the bottom, and then filter them and add modulation to them as I see fit. But then in the middle, I want something different, like a tonal aspect, and then up high, I want something maybe like spooky or something like that, right? You know, something that is kind of interesting. So, you know, it is what it is. So you can kind of do all that. And I think that's killer as well. So that's something when I'm building presets or building sounds along with modulation. You know, I'm always kind of looking at ways that you can kind of do things for and enhance the experience that people can use. So, you know, it's really, really helpful stuff. Okay. Now the next things I want to talk to you about is the loop players. So I'm going to reset Horizen. Bear with me. So we've got a lot of people that are asking about our loop players continuously. So I thought I'd do a little section and leave this till the end. So, okay, our loop players, we have two of them. Now they're both identical, so don't worry about that. All right. So what can you do with loop players? So with our loop players, you can not only just use the samples that we've provided, which are most of them are just nonsense sound effects or whatever, right? So, which is, you know, they're fun. There's some useful stuff in here, but they're not designed to be played alone, right? So as you know, samples, if you load any one-shot sample into a sampler and you try and play it across the whole range of the keyboard, it will sound like arse most of the time. Some sounds, like small little ditty sounds, sound okay, but generally it's not good. You know, it will just sound weird and, you know, not particularly very pleasing, you know. So, sorry, let me mute that sound. Okay. So, here we have just, well, it was called chain rope. So if I now play really low, obviously, there it is. And really high, that's, you know, everyone knows this. So, but where our loop players, again, are really, 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 really useful is for this kind of ethereal kind of thing if you want something constant with playing something underneath, right? So let me show you how we do that. First of all, actually, let me just mute that. Go to sampler one. I'm just going to... no, you know what? Let me just do this. Let me just load a standard pad, right? Okay, that will do. Make sure I've got nothing in loop. Right, I don't. Right, okay. So, We've got nothing in loop right now because we didn't use it. So let me load this. What is it? Okay, cards. Right, okay, I remember doing this. Basically, it's a playing card on a fan. You know, I had a fan in the kitchen not last summer, but a few summers back, let's say, when we did this. And I just recorded the fan hitting the card, basically. So that's all that is. And then I created a little rhythmic pattern over it, and that's it. Now, at the moment, obviously, that's not particularly very usable because it's all over the place. So how do we use all these samples? So, okay, well, the little magic trick is easy. So if we click on this button here, and then if we now take off pitch track, it becomes the root note of how it was recorded. So the original recording, right? So now wherever I play, it doesn't matter. It's constant, right? And it doesn't re-trigger itself either, unless you physically stop, which is incredible, which means that now you can create the ultimate drones. So let me show you how. So for example, this is going, if you put the release up, you take your fingers off and then it does it so that you're not always triggering the sound again, right? So, and now if you know, I don't want to play effects or anything like that just at the moment, but obviously you've got all the standard controls, just the same as you have everything else. So if we now put that in with the pad sound, so, you know, it will always be that one pitch, right? You know, I'm not suggesting that you should use this sound with with that, but I'm just dragging one to show you. But, you know, is what it is. But you know what? Let's make it work just because, see if we can, right? So it was too loud, so I'm just going to turn that down. Now, all right. Now, obviously, you can then do some advanced stuff like, you know what? That's too fast. Let's, you know, slow it down. Right? Let me solo it again. And now, here's something special that is, I don't know whether this is a happy accident in coding or whether this is actually how it works. But, again, it's something I abuse heavily. For stuff like this type of sound or some strange bells or whatever it is you've got going on, then the unison is just incredible, right? So let me show you that, right? So if you now turn up this, I don't know, to say 3, right? And then put detune up to max, right? And then you play the note. You see now it's fluttering in the stereo. So, you know, it's like, that's just crazy. You know, you can hear multiple versions of it, right? And that just all of a sudden becomes just incredible, you know. And you put some delay on it, right? Oh, whatever I've got going on here, so. Yeah, I mean, generally I don't put reverb on effects because it kind of spoils it, but... There you go, put some delay on it. You know, and then you can then play it and then put a filter on it as well. You know, get rid of the low end like I normally would with sound effects. You know, and then you've got sort of something probably that will work. It sounds like rain a little. Turn it up a bit. So yeah, you got something that's kind of flitter-flattering in the background, you know, and then you know, obviously from that point you can then just put whatever you want on here really, so it doesn't really matter, you know. I want to find the bell that I used to use a lot, but that's really nice as well. So, you know, I mean, and obviously you from there, you're not limited to R's, for example. You know, you can, I'm just going to my sample library, and then here you can kind of say, you know what, I want, and there's a sample right here. You know, something else, you know, anything that you've got, you can just drag in to here, so it's your own things. But the other thing what I want to talk about is obviously you've got this loop button, so if you've got a one shot like a drum hit or an impact or something like that, you don't want it to loop, which is fine, so you just disable loop. But there's also a reverse, which obviously is self-explanatory, but then there's random reverse as well, which basically, so oh, there you go, it's starting to reverse. Let's sort the end out, so maybe to here, the start could be here, so yeah, there we go. And if I put some extra attack on it and stuff like that, I mean, this isn't the best sound to do that with, but if you've got you know, something random, hang on, let me find something random then, rather than me say that. So if I go to my, where are they gone? All my Foley stuff here, and then oh no, not rain, that'd be boring. Okay, what's this one? This is a train, ambient train. Okay, let's go interior. Okay, so yeah, you can kind of hear it now bouncing between the two. So it's quite a nice sound right off the rip, you know. But it is what it is. But anyway, so you get my kind of point here, and you know, you can just do a lot of imagination just by using the loop player in non-pitch track mode. So of course, as soon as you put pitch track on, pitch track is good for like if you want to put down on instruments. Like, let me find some of those so I can show you when you do with normal instruments. Where's my things gone? Here we are. Right, so I don't know, like there's a bell, right? It's not a very good bell, however. There we go. Oh, let me take off random reverse. So there you go. You can then play it normal. So again, it depends on the samples that you use and what you have and so on and so forth. But the point is the loop player is kind of really good. And recently I've been doing a track for a score where we're using kind of Prodigy style of writing, like that 90s kind of rave electronic pop sort of thing, right? And it's all about sampling in those days. So I've literally just had to use Horizen as a sampler pretty much, and it's great. It just does 90% of the work for you. You just drag it in and manipulate it and do whatever you want. And so it's great for just triggering vocals randomly, you know, bits and pieces. And so it's really good and fun for that type of thing, you know. I mean, it's not a super advanced sampler, like, so you can't put multiple points and then jump to them and things like that. But you know, it's like everything has to have a working condition, and then we can then always upgrade things as things go along, you know. So I don't know how much we could upgrade this. I've got no idea, and I wouldn't like to suggest anything either, but there's always things that we can look at and to do, you know. So and I think that's a good thing at the end. So there's some of my advanced stuff. I mean, obviously there's tons more that you can kind of do, but I just don't want to throw too much in one video. It just confuses everybody. So you know, it's like just small steps, and then as things sort of progress, then we can just do more things, you know, because there's a whole heap, but you just can't think of them off the top of your head until you're sort of sitting there doing some kind of sound design, you know what I mean? So you know, is what it is. And on that note, I'm going to just quickly show you the new pack that I'm working on right now, just to give you a couple of you know, a couple of ideas about what I'm up to, about the mountain winds stuff that we've got going on. So, you know, let's do this one, maybe. So now that's just the normal pad thing. Hold on, because these are still work in progress, so I'm trying to understand what is going on. No, not that one either. I want one that is specific, so okay. Okay, now we've got a drone note here. Beautiful. Honestly, you can get lost for days playing this type of thing, right? I'm just super stoked with this. And all of these are using, you know, as I said, I mean, I've done some, but not all yet, but we're using the modulation stuff, you know, quite heavily in this, you know, at the moment. So there's a lot of stuff in here, really. There's even a clarinet. And the good thing is we had someone come here and we recorded all the flutes. Oh, really nice. And there was one I wanted to show that I was working on earlier today. I can't remember what I called it now, so Winchester. No, this is... That's nice as well. What was the one? No. don't know where they've gone. It's just incredible. Honestly, this pack has been probably one of the hardest we've had to do, because we had to get a proper windist in to sample everything, and we were lucky enough to get hold of one to basically give us all the instruments that they had, which is quite a lot of ethnic instruments. So I'm looking forward to really finishing that one off, so can you share your own personal way of pre-thinking what sounds you want to create? I'm curious what the process for you when you're preparing to make new interesting stuff. Well, that's a bit of a loaded question. It's difficult because, I mean, I have to think of two ways. One as a composer and a sound designer, and the other one I have to think of with my business hat on as a synth developer, what people may or may not need, you see. So if I'm talking about personal, then it depends on the project I'm working on, which then depends on what sound that I need for that project, if you see what I mean. So, but if I'm talking about with my hat on as a developer, then it's like I look through the market and see what's kind of popular, what's trending, what's kind of buzzing right now. Just talking to people, just research in general, finding out where our strengths are in terms of what our synth is capable of doing. Then we kind of push that way. From a personal side, it's like I look at it like a glass half full, right? Is because obviously Horizen is very populated right now with lots of different sounds already. So if it's not there and if it's something specific, then it's like, okay, I need to create that. I need to get hold of it, and I need an easy way to do it. So if it's something that isn't inside Horizen already, if it's something like a drone sound that I want for a part of a track or a cinematic project or whatever it is I'm working on, it doesn't matter. As long as you can think it, you can do it, right? That's the way I see it. Don't ever sit there and struggle and think, oh, I can't do that, because that's the wrong way to do it, right? It's like we've just given you a platform to be able to be excellent at what you do, right? And so, and again, remember what I said right at the start, is that knowledge is power. Now, you may have in your mind, and you can hear it clear as day, oh, this is what I need, this is what I need, this is what I need, right? But then you don't know the knowledge of how to get there. And so a lot of people just kind of think that and then give up because they don't know what they're doing, right? So to approach a sound is like you first have to think about what is needed for the track, whether it would be a drone sound, a low-end sound, a mid-range sound, or a high-end sound. And then you can kind of go fishing. You try and find a bass line, not as in a bass line, but as in a bass point to start from, is what I meant, not to get those two confused. So you want to find your starting point by looking at some of the sounds that are available already in Horizen, until it's like, oh, okay, that's something similar, but it's not quite right. So then what makes that sound wrong for that project that you're working on? So then you ask yourself that question. So it's almost as if someone's standing on your shoulder and saying, okay, this is what you've got to do. So you've got to be your own producer. So you've got to almost tell yourself what you've got to do. So it's like, okay, this sound, it needs to be dirty. It's got to be more crunchy, or it's got to have a lot more top end, right? And so the sound I'm listening to right now is great just to kind of get things organized and working, but it's not the sound I want. So then you say to yourself, okay, well, if it's just brightness, then I've got tools available in Horizen. So I've got my EQ down here. I can quickly just adjust things on the fly, or I've got in the Master Effects, I've got an EQ section here. I can quickly just boost the high end, or get rid of the mud, or whatever it is that you want to do. Or you know, the sound needs to decay more, or it's whatever. So okay, add more release, or it's too plucky. Okay, get rid of the attack. Or I want it to pluck more, so you lessen the attack, and then you use the filter envelope to give it that kind of enveloped quack sort of sound. You know, so everything, I can't really answer that without you answering it yourself. You know, so I think it's something that, in times of experience and practice, you understand what you need when you need it. You know what I mean? And if you don't, then you're not quite there yet, right? So that's the way I look at it. So it's like a producer, you know, a producer's role is to make sure that whatever material that they're working on is a good enough quality to make the grade, okay? So if a producer can't do that, then they're not experienced enough, right? So you've got to tell yourself, okay, what is it do I need? And then you tell yourself what you need, and you just get it done, right? And then that's why you can do your job properly, because you already know what you've got to do. You just don't have it yet. You see what I mean? So yeah, absolutely, you have to be your own producer all of the time. You know, so, I mean, honestly, I nag myself all of the time. I'm constantly shouting at myself, to be honest. So, especially it gets stressful because, especially if you're really busy and you've got lots of things to do, and you, in your head, you're like, okay, this track is not finished because I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I've got these sounds to do, I've got that to make, I've got this to do, or whatever, you know, stuff like that. And it gets complicated, and it gets tricky quite fast sometimes, and so you've got to kind of be on the ball. But I've been doing this for, you know, 20 plus years, so I've got that experience to deal with that pressure. But my advice to anyone who's just starting out is just learn by example, basically. And so what I would try and suggest people do, and what I did way back in the olden days to learn, is listen to a record, any record, it doesn't matter, find a sound that you like, and then try and recreate that sound, you know, in one way or another. And then and that way you gain so much experience, and then the second you hear it, you can identify what it is that you need, you know. And in a lot of cases, you can create most record sounds from just the VA synthesizer. And then obviously if it's something truly unique, then you would have to use samples and things like that. But majority of the time, it is just synth sounds and effects, you know. So that's what I would suggest that to anybody new who wants to do sound design for a living, or just music generally, and they want to create their own stuff, is just you know, just listen to records and try and do it yourself, you know. Good question though. I appreciate that. So I mean, if you got any more questions, then fire away. You know, I will be trying to grow the channel, obviously, as you know. I do want to get Discord a little bit more alive. So, and I know, I mean, it's laid out nice, but I made that, I don't know, 3 years ago, 4 years ago or something, and then we didn't touch it. So I'm surprised that there's still people there, to be honest. That's back in the olden days. So you know, it is what it is. So we'll try and keep an eye on this, and I want to just start sharing things. And obviously, if you guys have ever got any questions and stuff like that when I'm off stream, then you're on the Discord now. Just, I'm going to leave Discord on permanently. So you can basically just ask questions and I'll be there to help you, you know, so it's not an issue. And if you ever need help with, you know, the synth or creating presets or whatever, then I'll help you with that as well. And if you want me to listen to some music and critique it, then I will happily do so as well. Talking about music, you know, I mean, these tips and trick videos are good. But we're going to do some music stuff soon as well, you know, just write some tracks together and have some fun and deal with sound design in the moment and things like that, you know, so it'll be kind of cool. So, you know, but more on that later. But for now, I'm going to disappear. I'm going to go and get myself some dinner and maybe grab another coffee. So now I'm out of this current batch. So I will bid you all farewell, and hopefully y'all have a wonderful rest of the day. So take good care of yourself, guys. Thanks for coming and thanks for everything. So